Have we started?
Welcome to a joint meeting of the Carroll County Council and the Carroll County Commissioners. And I would like to invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, this is your chance to switch with the chair next to you.
Ask for ARPA.
I only just got it earlier to send it over.
Yeah, if we look at this situation, we're here today with the task of dividing up some money that we have. And, is there a certain way that the council would like to go about this? Is there an order or a way that you'd like it done?
Yeah, my preference would be, that we treat this very from an informational perspective. In other words, we need to look at the amount of money that we've been allocated, look at or deduct what's already been spoken for, and then talk about what's remaining. The concern is that we're trying to get bond issuance for jail.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't want to start, in this meeting committing money. It's like if you're borrowing money on a mortgage, you don't go out and buy a car until that's closed, right, when you're in the middle of it. So my concern is that we need to have these conversations and discussions. It needs to be put on the table and transparent for everybody to know what we're dealing with, but that we treat this as a first of several steps, and not make any hard and fast decisions today.
Okay.
Until we have, the jail bond issued, and we have that taken care of.
So you think you might need more?
Well,
There's, yeah, go ahead, I don't.
so our, the Baird, the company that you all entered into an agreement with that's doing the bond work, Baird, I talked to a representative from Baird Friday. My concern was, we were unaware of the $450,000 additional contract that we entered into with, Elevatus, and any extra money that is owed to Elevatus, before the end of the project, because we have a cap stack that we agreed to in principle when we voted on that as a group and sent it to you all, but that $452,000 comes out of this money that has already been committed. And then there's potentially, just doing quick math, I mean, the original contract with Elevatus was 6.5% of what was anticipated to be $12 million of construction costs, and now it's $25 million of construction costs, so I don't know if we have additional liability to that contract. So, if we do, then there is potentially even more money coming out of money that we've already committed to issue these bonds. Now, we also, so when we went to the bond market January the 1st, we had $10 million between county general and the rainy day. And in less than 60 days here, that number is down close to $3.1 million potentially. And when the bond company is assessing risk, our number one positive credit rating, or number one factor to the credit worthiness of Carroll County, is our liquidity. And so if we are decreasing in our, the things that drag us down we're small, we have a limited income base and things of that nature. So our biggest feature of why we are an attractive, customer or bond issuer, debt issuer, is our liquidity, and our liquidity has materially changed between the first of the year and now. So, what I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here and say the sky is falling. I'm just saying we need all the cash on hand that we can show to our creditors up to and until the bonds are issued for the jail. Because the problem that you're gonna run into is if we have less cash, we're less creditworthy, interest rate goes up, and that is, every payment that we make is more, and we may not be able to afford the debt service at that point, off of how it's issued, and it just gets more and more expensive and it compounds. So I'm just saying, like, today, like, I would just preach prudence to everybody here. Like, I'm not saying that we can't do all of these things, I'm just saying, like, until the bonds are issued, pump the brakes and take a deep breath and let's get that done before we start pushing more money out the front door.
I think we're looking at, like, realistically, we're looking at 45, 60 days maybe, in terms of knowing for certain what the bond, issuance and the terms of that will be.
60 days, we should be issued, like, I mean, the bonds should be issued in 60
Yeah,
days.
so like, the importance of these discussions, I think, is legitimate and
Yeah.
valid. Because we're not looking too far down the road to have to wait to start making some decisions on these funds. I just wanna, as you asked for progress going forward for this meeting, I just wanna make sure, we understand that as a baseline, and then we can proceed from there. And I agree with concern around making spending decisions today in the face of the jail project and getting those bonds nailed down.
And I'd like to add on Josh's comment, from January until now, one of the largest proponents of the extra need for cash has been this trial that is upcoming. You know, we set aside $2+ million in anticipation of the costs involved with the trial. And that has been the biggest bite into, everything else. I mean, we're trying to keep all these balls in the air.
But that has nothing to do with ARPA. Let's make that very clear.
Well, yes,
The
yes,
trial does have nothing
Right.
to do with ARPA funds.
right. It doesn't, we're not utilizing ARPA funds for that, but it does,
But it does draw down our balance.
It's left pocket, right
Very
pocket,
good.
same pair of
It's-
pants, essentially.
It's cash on hand.
I know, but I just wanna make sure people know we're not using ARPA funds for a trial.
No, but I mean, yes, you're correct. It's just the depletion of those funds that was, I mean, it's all happened very quickly.
So when you say there's 45 to 60 days to get the bond, then the other problem is that I'm seeing is that we don't know how much more they're going to come back. You are saying and invoice us from the first and from that contract that they signed.
Yeah, I mean, it would help me out a great deal if Elevadis would say, this is the number that we anticipate is the all-in, this is what you're gonna owe us at some point here in the very near future.
Because you're gonna have that to have final numbers.
Correct.
So who solves that problem? Commissioners or us, or one of us, one of them both?
It would be great if you guys could do that. I mean, that would be very helpful.
Well, they're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we could request it, but the contract isn't with us.
That's correct.
So, I mean, they hold the contract.
I agree 110% with Tim that we need to discuss it, but we don't need to spend it today.
Well, I thought that's what it was about, get everybody's issues and then prioritize.
Question in the back, Native.
Josh, you said there was 10 million to start with in between in January, and I believe that the trial was 2 point something. Where'd the rest of that money go? You said from 10 to 3, so where's the other 5?
No, I'm saying it's 3, down by 3, potentially down by 3.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I misunderstood.
I misunderstood. I thought he said 3.
Or
Okay.
down 2, 3.
No, sorry, by 3. So 7 is well, 7 is kind of the new number. Depends on how much money this Elevatus thing, it's kind of a variable, but we know that it's at least 500, and it could be $1 million to $1.2 million. Like, just depends on like what they say.
Well, we knew when we had to do a redesign, we knew there was gonna be fees with that. They just gonna do that for free. And I think they did the redesign the first time for free, if I recall.
It's a contract.
Yeah, so I mean, that's all. I'm not nitpicking any of that. I'm just saying that it's
It's a bill that needs to be paid soon.
right, and it's
We
not
gotta figure
contemplated
it
in anything that the bond companies did, that we analyzed with the cap stack. It's
It's a
an
bill that needs to be signed, but it also.
unfunded liability
You
at this
have to
point.
find out when the bills are going to stop coming that are above and beyond what we have.
Question in the front row.
Tracy explained that, the trial wouldn't use ARPA funds, so can the jail use ARPA funds?
We plan on that.
But is that part of the agreement from the federal government when they release that money, is that, can that be used? It can be.
The rules were changed in the middle of all this.
Anything that would typically be paid out of general ledger.
And my understanding is we don't have this 1.5 million, is that what you guys did? 1.5 million?
The current obligation is 1.5 million.
And without that,
in the
we wouldn't
bond
even be
paperwork.
able to build the jail, right? Without the 1.5, we wouldn't be able to.
That's correct. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
So if I
I'm
understand
sorry,
you
can you
right,
explain
Tim,
that?
then you want to just, are we gonna have them present each one that has asked for money, take the notes, take the numbers, and then meet again to go over?
I'm sorry, would
What-
you start on that question again?
So am I taking that this meeting is, we're gonna meet, we're gonna go over the presentations, and then
We'll decide
do
which
the
one.
numbers, and then have an, another brainstorm?
Well, that's what I wanted to know, how you wanted to do it. It was my understanding that that's what we were going to do, was go down to it, listen to, different presentations and find out what ones we wanted to, if there was some we needed to call out of the herd, or if we needed to, have another meeting.
I'm sure we'll have to have another meeting.
Oh, I'm sure. Ed?
I'm going back to what was discussed just before Tracy's question. I wasn't following with the 1.5 million out of ARPA to, the jail fund, so that's already been pulled out of ARPA for the jail fund,
I don't know that anything has been pulled out.
committed.
We're just,
We have a financial plan of,
yeah, kind of penciled
which you'll
it
kind
in.
of see today.
So that takes the balance down the flat.
Of course, the $2 million for the trial coming up, that wasn't on anybody's really radar very strong until the last few months.
say what?
It's in our resolution.
I think so.
Yeah, it is it's in the council's resolution.
Yeah.
It's exhibit to the resolution.
So, would the council like to have just people start in, just giving presentations, or, brief presentations on what that they feel like we should budget this money for? Is that all right? Okay, let's just start on the front. Yeah, Nita, you got it.
I just have one more question.
Sure, that's fine.
I thought the commissioners were the ones that set the resolution for the ARPA funds. The council only approves the resolution that you guys decide.
This resolution is for the jail.
I know, but I'm saying that the commissioners have to approve the resolution that the council put in place for the 5.1 million. Is that right or not? I'm just asking.
What, I don't know what you're talking.
What's
You talked
5.1
about it
million?
more
The
than-
1.5 million that you say you set a resolution for.
I think we're getting everything convoluted, Nita. The council made a resolution to the commissioners stating that we would fund the jail with the cap stack that was presented to us by Baird, of which ARPA is a component of that, to $1.5 million.
We've talked about it in our last joint meeting, and when Scott said in our one meeting, when, the BOT, BW was here, he said that in that line item, when you said at this table here, said it's more than likely we've got to have at least 1.5 million out of ARPA to help get this project going.
Okay, so you guys have signed that resolution?
We haven't signed anything that I'm
Okay.
aware of, it was just all in discussion.
Okay, I just, with clarification.
Any other questions before we start here?
And I was gonna also add the 1.6 million for the broadband project that's already spoken
1.6 for what, Scott?
The
for. Broadband,
Oh, yeah.
That's already appropriated.
right.
Yeah, and that broke ground.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And that's out of the ARPA? Does
Correct.
that come out of it?
Yes.
So what's that leave?
Well, we're gonna show you,
600,000?
we're gonna show you.
Okay,
Was it discussed?
cause it, so far I don't see any of it going.
I'll come back.
First thing on there is Barnes and Thornburg.
Half back in general, I believe, they're closing, they don't call it half.
So it is coming back to the council.
Some of it is. The other
Yeah.
parts go reach the homes that could be extended to,
I don't believe any of it's coming.
like 800,000 or something.
So it's staying.
Well, I'm not doing very good at it, but
No,
at the
it just
beginning
goes
of
to the
this.
broadband fund for reaching the ones that are a mile off the road or something.
Your professional services, Barnes and Thornburg, the ambulance, and then economic development, those have all been, approved by the commissioners and the council. Now, over here is the balance of what we still have in the fund.
I can't read it. Yeah, I can't see it.
Okay, hang on.
There's a glare on it.
If you,
$602,720.86 is the bottom line.
this is the balance of the fund, then you have to take those away, and then the 1.5 million for jail, cause that's been talked about, and this is the balance that you would have to appropriate.
Okay, yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to get this out of the way before you move on to your request. And I think I emailed, all of you are included in an email, when I was trying to determine if we need a separate bank account for the American Rescue Plan funds. And the deciding factor in my eyes is if the interest should be going to the fund or to the general fund. So I'm handing out a fund register which shows the expenses and the income.
Would you pass those back, Scott? Sure.
So if you take a look at the fund register, you see the receipts, the $1.9 million that was added when we received the first payment back in September, and then again last August. You see the other receipts are interest credits that we've received every month. As you know, interest rates have been rebounding, and so right now we're up, getting close to 5% interest. So last month, well, in January, the interest earned on this, 4 million actually, is $12,575. And I wanna call your attention to the balance in the fund, and then on the second page, you look at the line that I asked the star by,
Do
the
you
4 million.
have one of these we put up for the people out here?
Sure. there's 3.1, which basically jives with, I think best 3,086,000 was a couple lines up. But that's before the interest was added. December and January's interest have been added to that $3 million since, her number. And then, but this is the bank account. The star, the 4 million, because when we first received these funds, I was asked to open up a separate bank account for the ARP funds, and I did that. So that bank account I've not withdrawn from it. We've written checks from the 8950 fund on the general ledger, but those checks come from our main operating account. So therein lies the disconnect, and we need to fix it, but I don't know the correct path to take. If the ARP funds don't need to be separate in a separate bank account, I can close that bank account and just put it all with the rest of our funds ledger money in our operating account. And that's where the expenses have been paid. Does that make sense? I mean, I see this every day, so it's making sense to me, but I'm not very good at explaining things sometimes.
Well, I would like to suggest that when you get the check register, or your, when you sign a clean docket, you see that there's ARPA money, but that ARPA money should be, when the checks come over, should be from the ARPA fund to the Horizon Bank. And then our fund and your bank would coincide.
Well, that's kind of what we do with the redevelopment money. We have a fund just for spending, and then a fund.
But ARPA can only have one fund, we cannot have two funds. And we only have one checking account, so I don't know how you expect me to not write checks on the
Yeah.
Horizon,
Well,
when you can transfer.
again, my question is, why does it really need to be in a separate bank account?
Was that something that the council requested that it go into a separate account?
I thought we did that to better track.
I think the commissioners are the ones that asked for it to be.
Because the funds ledger will track everything. But
That's really just an audit question, from my perspective, right?
and then my question, to back up that question, I guess, is the interest, because currently the funds ledger is receiving, that 8950 fund is receiving the interest. And the only way for that fund to receive the interest is to keep the money separate. So, should that $3.9 million, it's received up till last month, $68,000 in interest. So we've got the 3.9 in this fund, and we've also got an additional 68,000 that's been added to it since we've received the money.
My accounting point of view is it needs to be separate, and the interest money needs to be going back into the,
General fund?
to the ARPA funds. But, I mean, I see the other point of it, you're gonna get the same end result
If you
if
still gonna get,
you keep it on a line, or,
you still gonna get the same interest rate though, if you move it?
I'll get the same interest.
You just said it wouldn't, right?
No, they'll get the same interest rate. It's where should the interest be going? Most of our funds, the interest earned on the cash level goes into our operating fund, goes into our general ledger. Goes into general fund. Unless, say, like reassessment is an example. They took money out of their fund and invested it into a CD. The highway department, Coon Bridge, they take money out of their fund and invested it into a CD. And those funds receive the interest.
so why can't you take the interest and put it back in the ARPA funds? Problem solved.
It is right now.
It is in the fund. What I'm saying is if
It can go into
you
county
have to
general.
identify how much of the interest is from that fund. If the funds are commingled together, and you put, I don't know, $17 million on, I thought ARPA was separate. It is, but ARPA doesn't have checks.
not a checking account, it's a savings account. And for Beth to write checks out of two different accounts, you know, that's not realistic. She needs to issue the checks from our general fund. So,
Then you would transfer the money from ARPA to the general, pay the right check?
When do the ARPA funds have to be spent?
2025,
2025 or
26.
2024?
26, yeah. End of 2025, or by 2026, end of
I'm
2025.
only writing it out of the Horizon Bank. The simplest thing is to transfer the money
Yeah.
and transfer the, do it like she does the receiving. And she does the receiving, she puts it up there in that, I believe she does, anyway. Don't you put your receiving up there in that fund? I'm looking at your cash book, it's up here.
So you could just transfer the money over?
Over to what?
To make sure everybody
I can
understands here,
transfer the money, it's just how messy do you want it to get? I mean, if
Not
every time you write a check, you want me to go to this bank and say I need to move money over here? And
Can't you do it like maybe quarterly or monthly or?
I do whatever, that's why I'm here.
I don't,
this is our county treasurer, what I want you to know.
for instance, the last one I did was the end of the month, or end of the year. So that all was ARPA money. When you did this or did the check register, why can't you just transfer that amount of money? I mean, it's all ARPA, it was all ARPA on this claim docket.
That's what I'm saying, monthly or even quarterly, because I don't see a lot of, if we're not going to, if we don't have a plan right now in place and we don't have stuff we're paying on, it can't be that many transactions